Radical Focus: Achieving Your Most Important Goals with Objectives and Key Results, by Christina Wodtke. Introduction. Hannah sat at her desk, feeling the weight of a dream collapsing. Her company, a startup born from a shared passion for good tea, was failing. Not with a bang, but with the quiet, crushing silence of missed targets and mounting tension. Her hands were flat on the desk, and she was fighting the urge to just let her head fall onto the keyboard. Her co-founder was drifting, her lead engineer was a cultist of chaos, and she was about to fire someone for the very first time. How did it come to this? How does a brilliant idea, funded by smart people and fueled by genuine passion, end up on the brink of extinction? This is a story that plays out every single day in garages, coffee shops, and boardrooms around the world. It's the story of inspiration hitting the cold, hard wall of execution. And it's the central question at the heart of a little book that has become a quiet giant in the world of business and achievement, Radical Focus, by Christina Wodtke. Now, this isn't just another business book filled with charts and jargon. It's a fable, a story about a little tea company that almost didn't make it. But woven into this simple story is a powerful, elegant system for achieving what matters most. It's a system called OKRs, Objectives and Key Results, a framework born at Intel, perfected at Google, and used by countless organizations to achieve explosive growth. Today, we're going to walk through this story together. And I promise you, by the end of our time, you will understand the one thing that separates the dreamers from the doers. You'll have a blueprint, a simple but profound method for taking your most important goals, whether it's for a company, a project, or your own life, and making them real. This isn't just about getting more done, it's about getting the right things done. It's about finding clarity in the chaos. It's about learning the art of radical focus. Book summary. Our story begins, as so many great ventures do, with a simple, shared frustration. Once upon a time, there were two students at Stanford, Hannah and Jack. Hannah, whose family was steeped in the traditions of fine Chinese tea, couldn't find a decent cup of Longjing in Palo Alto to save her life. Jack, a Brit with a designer's eye, was miserable that he could find a perfectly poached egg but only tea that came in a sad little paper bag. One day, their shared despair over bad tea brought them together, and a friendship bloomed into a business idea. They saw a gap in the market, connecting the small, artisanal tea growers with fine restaurants and cafes that were snobbish about their coffee but completely clueless about their tea. They would be the bridge. They called their startup TB, and their mission was simple: bringing great tea to people who love it. With a little bit of seed money from the right connections, they were off. Hannah became the CEO, the business mind. Jack became the president, the heart of the product. They set up a small office, hired a few engineers, and Jack, with his designer sensibility, created a beautiful website where restaurants could order exquisite tea. For a little while, it was perfect. The dream was alive. They gave away tea at tech meetups, Hannah closed a few deals with local restaurants, and the office hummed with the quiet confidence of a company on the rise. But then, a subtle unease began to creep in. The money clock was ticking, they had about a year of funding left. And while lots of small tea producers were signing up for their platform, very few restaurants were buying. Their marketplace was lopsided, and a lopsided market isn't a market at all. It's a hobby. So, like good founders, they hit the pavement to sell the tea themselves. One day, Hannah came back to the office with a huge order, but it wasn't from a trendy cafe. It was from a restaurant supplier, a big, boring company that sold everything from canned goods to coffee to restaurants big and small. Jack was conflicted. On one hand, it was a lot of money. On the other, it wasn't the plan. Their vision was about fine dining and fine tea. Did this supplier really care about quality? Jack, Hannah sighed. The restaurants don't trust us yet. We're too new. But the suppliers are willing to take a chance, and they will get our tea into those same restaurants. Let's just see how this plays out. A few days later, Hannah closed another deal with another supplier. And then another. Each sale was the equivalent of closing 20 restaurants at once. The tea growers were thrilled. They were selling more tea than ever. The numbers were looking good. This, Hannah realized, was their real business. It was time to change the game plan. It was time to pivot. A pivot, as she explained to Jack, isn't about changing your mission. Their mission was still to bring great tea to people who love it. A pivot is about changing your tactics to achieve that mission. They would sell to suppliers, who would then sell to the restaurants. It was a more efficient, more profitable path to the same destination. Jack was resistant. He was the guardian of the vision, the product purist. He worried the suppliers would push for lower prices, forcing the growers to compromise on quality. He was designing beautiful new packaging, agonizing over the perfect shade of blue for the boxes. And he was worried about something else. One of the new suppliers had complained that the website was too much work for them to use. Hannah had agreed to enter their orders manually. Rubbish. I did usability testing on that, Jack protested. This is the first great friction point in any venture. It's the tension between the idealist and the pragmatist. Between the vision of the perfect product and the reality of what the market actually wants. Jack was worried about the problems they might have in the future. Hannah was focused on the problem they had right now. They were running out of time and money. As she wisely told him, a phrase her mother had taught her, solve the problems you have, not the ones you imagine. They were at a stalemate. So they did what smart founders do. They sought advice. They went to see Jim Frost, their first investor, a Valley veteran who had seen hundreds of companies succeed and fail. They met him at a Starbucks, a place Jack hated, seeing it as the symbol of mass-produced mediocrity. Jim listened patiently to their dilemma. And then, he told them a story. A story about Intel in the 1980s. The company was losing a fortune in the memory chip business to Japanese competitors. The founders, Andy Grove and Gordon Moore, were agonizing over what to do. One day, Andy turned to Gordon and asked a profound question. If we got kicked out and the board brought in a new CEO, what do you think he would do? Gordon answered without a moment's hesitation, he would get us out of memories. Andy's response was a thunderclap of clarity. Why shouldn't you and I walk out the door, come back in, and do it ourselves? And that's exactly what they did. They got out of the memory business and focused on microprocessors, a decision that propelled Intel into legendary success. Jim called this the revolving door test. It's about stepping outside of your own history, your own emotions, and looking at the problem with fresh eyes. So, kids, Jim asked them, if you were hired as the new CEO today, what would you do? The question hung in the air. The answer was obvious. The suppliers were where the money was. It was where they had found what every startup desperately seeks, product-market fit. Jack finally, reluctantly, had to agree. I suppose if I was the new CEO, I'd have to agree to commit to the pivot. It was a breakthrough. But Jim knew this was just the beginning. Getting aligned is one thing, staying aligned is another. I recommend you consider using OKRs to keep things on track, he said. He explained the basics. OKRs stand for Objectives and Key Results. Each quarter, you set one bold, inspiring, qualitative objective. And then you set 3 measurable, quantitative key results that tell you if you've actually achieved it. The objective is the what. It's the dream. It should make you want to jump out of bed in the morning. The key results are the how. They are the proof. They should be a little scary. They should be hard goals, the kind you only have a 50-50 shot of achieving. This is a crucial point. OKRs are not a to-do list. They are not about launching a feature. They are about achieving an outcome. The objective inspires the creative, right-brained people. The key results ground the goal in reality for the analytical, left-brained people. It's a system that marries passion with proof. So Hannah and Jack sat there, at that Starbucks patio, and hammered out their first OKR. Their objective: establish clear value to restaurant suppliers as a quality tea provider. It was inspiring. It was focused. Their key results: 1. Reorders at 70%. 2. 50% of reorders self-serve, meaning through the website. 3. Revenue of $250,000. These were measurable. They were ambitious. They were a little scary. They finally had a clear, shared definition of success for the next 3 months. Filled with renewed purpose, they returned to the office and announced the pivot and their new OKRs to the team. But right away, they hit another wall. Their lead programmer, Eric, was furious. "This is bull," he said. "This company was started to help farmers and small businesses. That's why I joined." The team was divided. Some were excited by the new direction. Others felt like they were selling out. And then, at the end of the meeting, someone asked a fateful question: "What about our current customers, the restaurants?" Jack, wanting to keep everyone happy, quickly replied, "Oh, we can keep them." And Hannah, not wanting to create more conflict, let it slide. She'd deal with it later. It was a small compromise, but it planted the seed of a problem that would nearly destroy them. Because focus isn't just about choosing what to do. It's about choosing what not to do. In the weeks that followed, the company lost its way. Jack, the product purist, couldn't let go of his original vision. He kept organizing tea tastings at co-working spaces, trying to sell to individual businesses. It was networking, he argued. But it had nothing to do with their one, critical objective. It wasn't helping them establish value with restaurant suppliers. It was a distraction. A golden apple rolled across their path. Hannah, meanwhile, was overwhelmed. Because Jack wasn't fixing the website to handle the suppliers' bulk orders, she was spending hours every day manually entering them herself. The very thing that was making the money was also burning out their CEO. One night, after a pointless tasting event, she confronted him. "We agreed on our OKRs. These don't move any of them forward. These are a waste of time." But Jack didn't hear her. He was talking to Eric, the disgruntled engineer, who was feeding his fears that Hannah was just a typical MBA who only cared about money. Eric was reinforcing Jack's resistance, telling him, "Good thing we're watching out for the tea growers. Somebody's got to." The culture was becoming toxic. The team was split into factions. The dream was dissolving into resentment. The breaking point came in 2 devastating blows. First, Hannah had a brutal meeting with the numbers. They were 6 weeks into the quarter, and none of their key results were moving. Revenue was flat. Reorders weren't happening automatically. They were failing. She confronted Jack, who admitted he wasn't really a numbers kind of guy. "Jack," she exploded, "your refusal to pay attention to basic economics is driving me crazy. This is your company." She told him the story of her grandparents' restaurant, how they tried to keep everyone on during a downturn and ended up losing everything. "I can't make that mistake," she said, her voice trembling. The second blow was even worse. A major supplier, Jefferson, called to cancel their contract. Why? Too many wrong orders. the manual entry system had failed. And because Jefferson was their main buyer of matcha tea, Jack had to make the heart-wrenching call to their partner, Tenzo Farms, and tell them their biggest customer was gone. He had to tell them not to hire the new person they were planning to bring on. The failure was no longer an abstract number on a spreadsheet. It had a human cost. It was the sound of disappointment in a farmer's voice. For the first time, Jack realized that the business wasn't just about beautiful boxes and a perfect website. It was an ecosystem. His failure to do his job, to write the technical spec for the bulk order feature, had hurt real people. Hannah, feeling utterly alone, went back to see Jim, their investor. But he offered no comfort. He offered a cold, hard dose of reality. "I'm your investor, not your mom," he said. "You get it together with Jack, or you remove him. You focus on fixing your numbers. Or I look for a way to get someone in to get the company to the next level." The threat was clear: fix this, or you will be replaced. That night, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place, and it was terrifying. Jack confessed to Hannah what he'd overheard. Eric wasn't just complaining. He was actively sabotaging the company. He had been intentionally writing confusing, obfuscated code so that no one else could understand it, making himself indispensable. He was building a fortress around his job, even if it meant the whole kingdom burned down. Hannah was at rock bottom. The company was in a death spiral. She had failed to lead. Jack had failed to execute. Their team was in chaos. And now, they had a saboteur. And then, just as everything seemed lost, Jim called. "Can you kids swing by the Starbucks? I am talking to a fellow here, and I think you ought to meet." They walked onto that Starbucks patio, defeated and angry, expecting another lecture. Instead, they saw Jim sitting with a man who looked like he owned the world. Dark hair, aviator sunglasses, a relaxed confidence that radiated energy. His name was Raphael. He was a brilliant engineer who had just left a gaming company after a successful IPO. He was their potential new CTO. Hannah, committed to brutal honesty, laid it all out. "We set several critical goals last quarter, and we met none of them," she confessed, expecting him to walk away. Raphael just grinned. "You're doing it wrong," he said. And in that moment, everything changed. Raphael wasn't just an engineer, he was an executioner. He understood the OKR system not as a vague management theory, but as a practical, powerful tool for getting things done. He grabbed a napkin and started sketching. "5 OKRs?" he said. "You can't even remember them all. How can your team, if you say 3 things, you say nothing? It's the economy, stupid. Focus on one key message. One objective for the whole company. That's it." This was the first lesson of radical focus, the power of one. A company needs a single, unifying goal that everyone can remember and rally behind. Not a laundry list of competing priorities. "But you can't just set goals and hope they happen," he continued. "You have to execute against them as a team. That means check-ins. A weekly cadence." He drew 4 quadrants on the napkin. This, he explained, was their weekly dashboard. Their new ritual. In the top right, you put your one company OKR for the quarter. And next to each key result, you put your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10. You start at a 5/10 question mark, a 50-50 chance. Every week, you ask, has our confidence gone up or down? It forces a conversation about what's working and what isn't. In the bottom right, you list your health metrics. These are the things you need to protect while you're shooting for the moon. Things like customer satisfaction or team health. You mark them green, yellow, or red. If something turns red, it's a code red. You can pause work on the OKRs to fix what's broken. It creates balance. It stops you from winning the battle but losing the war. In the top left, you list your priorities for the week. The 3 or 4 most important things you will do to move the OKRs forward. Not busy work. Not everything on your to-do list. Just the things that must happen. This quadrant is about intention. And in the bottom left is the heads up, the pipeline of big things coming in the next 4 weeks, so no one is caught by surprise. This simple foursquare, reviewed every single Monday, creates a powerful rhythm. It's a cadence of commitment. It ensures that the goal isn't just a poster on the wall, it's the compass that guides every single week. But that's only half of the rhythm. The second part of the cadence, Raphael explained, is the Friday celebration. Every Friday, the team gets together. No status reports. No problem solving. Just winning. The engineers demo what they built. Sales shares the deals they closed. Customer service talks about a customer they made happy. It's a session for sharing progress and celebrating each other. It builds momentum. It reminds everyone that they are part of a winning team, even when the goals are hard and the work is tough. This weekly cadence, the Monday commitment and the Friday celebration, is the engine of the OKR system. It's what turns goal setting into goal achieving. Hannah, Jack, and Raphael formed a new executive team. And their first act was a hard one. They fired Eric, the saboteur. Hannah, finally stepping into her role as CEO, delivered the news. There was no negotiation. It was a clean, decisive action. And it sent a powerful message to the rest of the team. The culture of chaos was over. That Monday, they rolled out the new system. Hannah stood before the team. "Folks," she said, "we're going to make some changes. First, I'd like everyone to close their laptops." It was a small gesture, but it signaled a huge shift. No more hiding behind screens. They were going to be present. They were going to be a team. She explained the new format, one company OKR. And this time, they weren't going to hand it down from on high. They were going to build it together. "We value the things we make together," she said. "This is our company. We succeed or fail together." The team, for the first time, felt a sense of shared ownership. They debated, they argued, and they landed on a single, powerful OKR for the quarter. The weeks that followed were a transformation. The Monday meetings were sharp and focused. The Foursquare dashboard kept everyone aligned. When confidence in a key result dipped, they swarmed the problem as a team. The Friday win sessions became the highlight of the week. The office, once quiet and tense, was now filled with energy, laughter, and the palpable feeling of progress. People started to understand what their colleagues in other departments actually did all day. A culture of trust and transparency began to grow. Jack, no longer conflicted, found his focus. He realized that to build a great product, he had to understand the whole business, even the damn numbers. He let go of the contract for the graphic designer, Anya, not because her work wasn't good, but because it wasn't a P1, it wasn't helping them hit their OKRs right now. He was finally making the hard choices that focus requires. A quarter later, the team gathered to review their results. They had accomplished every single key result. They were jubilant. But Raphael poured a little cold water on their excitement. "Hey guys," he said, "this isn't good. Are we sandbagging?" Sandbagging. Setting goals you know you can make, just to feel good about yourselves. He challenged them to set even harder, more brutal goals for the next quarter. And they did. They were no longer afraid to fail. they were excited by the challenge of reaching for something great. The company was thriving. They were no longer just dreamers hoping things would work out. They had a system. They had focus. They were becoming executioners. A year later, Hannah sat at her desk, staring at an email. It was done. They had closed their series of funding round. They were set for at least another year. She looked across the office and saw Jack and Raphael hunched over a monitor, laughing. Everything was easier now. The disagreements were productive, not personal. Each week, they shared their goals. Each week, they supported each other. Each week, the numbers went up. She thought about saving the good news for the Friday win session. It would be nice to have the best news to brag about. She took a sip of her perfectly brewed Longjing tea. The dream was alive again. And this time, it was real. Commentary. What a story. It's simple, isn't it? But within that simplicity lies a truly profound set of lessons about what it takes to succeed. The story of TB isn't really about tea. It's about the universal struggle to turn an idea into reality. It's about the friction between passion and process, between vision and execution. Christina Wodtke gives us a framework, but she wraps it in a human story, because she knows that systems and processes are useless without people. And people are messy. We're driven by ego, by fear, by our own personal visions of what's right. Jack wasn't a bad guy. He was a creative who was afraid of compromising his vision. Hannah wasn't just a numbers-driven CEO. She was carrying the weight of her family's history and the fear of failure. Their conflict is the conflict inside every great team. The genius of the OKR system, as presented in Radical Focus, is how it addresses this human element. It's not a rigid top-down command and control system. It's a tool for creating alignment and fostering conversation. The first great lesson is the power of a single, shared goal. Think about it. In our own lives, how often are we trying to do 10 things at once? We want to get fit, and learn a language, and start a side project, and read more books, and spend more time with family. As Wodtke says, if everything is important, nothing is important. The discipline to choose the one thing that matters most for a season, whether it's a business quarter or a season of your life, is a superpower. It brings clarity. It simplifies decisions. It allows you to pour all your energy into a single point of attack. The second lesson is the magic of the cadence. A goal set in January is often forgotten by February. The weekly rhythm of Monday commitments and Friday celebrations is the heartbeat that keeps the goal alive. The Monday meeting forces you to be intentional. It asks, are the things I'm planning to do this week actually going to get me closer to my goal? The Friday celebration is just as critical. It builds momentum. It reframes the struggle. Even in a tough week where you don't feel like you made progress on the big goal, you can find small wins to celebrate. It protects the team's morale and creates a culture of positive forward movement. And finally, the most important lesson is the shift from measuring output to measuring outcome. This is a game changer. So many of us, and so many companies, are trapped in the busy work mindset. We measure our success by how many tasks we check off a list, how many features we ship, how many hours we work. But none of that matters if it doesn't produce a result. An OKR isn't build a new website. It's increase online sales by 20%. The website is just a tactic, a hypothesis. If it doesn't work, the OKR framework gives you the freedom to scrap it and try another tactic. It liberates you from being married to a plan and allows you to fall in love with a result. So how can you apply this right now? Start small. Pick one area of your life or one project you're working on. Don't try to implement 5 OKRs. Just one. What is the single most important objective you want to achieve in the next 90 days? Write it down. Make it inspiring. Then, define 3 measurable key results. How will you know, without a doubt, that you've succeeded? Make them a little scary. And then, find your cadence. On Monday morning, write down the 3 most important things you will do that week to move those numbers. On Friday afternoon, take 5 minutes to write down your wins. It doesn't have to be a party. Just acknowledge your progress. Celebrate it. Share it with a friend or a mentor. This system is simple, but it's not easy. It requires discipline. It requires honest conversations. It requires the courage to focus on one thing when the world is screaming at you to do a million things. But as Hannah and Jack discovered, it's the only path that turns a fragile dream into an unstoppable reality. That was a summary of Radical Focus by Christina Wodtke. We've journeyed through the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. You can see the landmarks and understand the layout, but you can't feel the sun on your skin or taste the local food. The real magic happens when you visit the country yourself. This summary is designed to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If the story of Hannah and Jack resonated with you, if the idea of finding clarity and focus in your own work excites you, then I encourage you to grab a copy of the book. Reading it isn't just learning a system, it's experiencing a story that might just change the way you approach your biggest goals. Also, if you found this summary valuable, I'd be so grateful if you would hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.